Hello everyone. Back again with some HomeLab adventures. So my last video we covered setting up Talos with Terraform on Proxmox and running Talos OS. I'm going to show you kind of the next evolution I've been doing in my HomeLab, which I think is a lot easier and actually a little more enterprise-like. I'm going to talk about a solution called Omni by Sidero. It's a GUI interface to manage your Talos. But don't worry, we'll be doing everything via CLI, so everything will be kind of GitOps ready. We don't have to do a lot of ClickOps, but you'll get to see the power of Omni here. And then I actually recorded a video like twice, and I actually had all these scripts set up, and I found out that I didn't need to do half of the scripts I was doing because actually there's a neat tool called the Sidero Proxmox Provider, which we'll be going through in this video. So we're going to be covering Proxmox. We'll be covering up setting up Talos. We're going to use the Proxmox provider to bootstrap our Proxmox instance to get Talos running. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So there's one caveat here is that you'll need to go through this guide that says deploy Omni on-prem to get Omni set up. It's pretty straightforward. You need to get a Auth0 account set up. That's free. You need to set up certbot, you need to set up your DNS, you need to set up HTTPS proxying. I'm not going to cover it in this video. There are pretty good docs here, but also I found this person, Virtualization How To, had a guide on this as well. It's a little bit more in depth than the Omni docs. I use these, they're pretty simple. But basically what's going to happen with Omni here, I'll show you. So you'll go through the guide, but eventually what's going to happen is you're going to get a Docker Compose file that runs the Omni. And then I'm running this. You could run it in a VM. You could run it on your Proxmox. I happen to have this mini Nook that I just need a use case for, so I'm running on the Nook. That's the only reason. So I'm going to show you setting it up, starting it up, and like a couple of the ClickOps things you have to do. And I'm going to actually show you bootstrapping the cluster. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to CD into my Omni. I already have this kind of set up, so bear with me. And we're going to do Docker compose up dash B. And so we're going to have Omni. A couple things you need to know. There's going to be an environment file. I'm not going to show you mine because it is sensitive. And you just fill out this file. It's going to have a couple things like what your DNS is going to be. It's going to have, some of these are predefined, like a lot of these you don't have to fill out. You just get them for free. But more importantly, this auth here is where you're going to set up your Auth0 account for login. And I'll show you why in a minute. And then what it's going to do is there's like minor gotcha here that I have found is we need to ensure we have etcd installed. Sorry, not installed. etcd folder created with the right permissions. I don't know if this is fully required. I'll put these in like links in the description or notes, but I had to change the ownership of the etcd directory for this to work. Not entirely sure if this is necessarily, but I'm just going to leave it here in case you find you have issues with etcd. This is what I did. I made a directory. I changed the ownership 1000, 1000, and then set 700 here. Again, maybe optional. I'm doing it here because it was required. So I did it earlier before this video started just to make sure it was pre-set up. And basically what's going to happen is because I have already have a domain, I've done this a few times today, so I'm going to log out and relog in. So what's going to happen, right, is this is protected with SSO. So when you make an Auth0 account, you're just linking the Auth0. Auth0 is just a SSO provider. Used to be called Okta, then Okta bought Auth0, and then they still call it Auth0. You're just logging in. It's pretty simple. It's covered in the notes with in here. Not too complicated. But what you'll end up getting is you'll get this interface. So I have a Cloudflare record. This is all self-hosted. This is not on the internet. This is just runs in my house, so you can't actually get here. But this runs this Sidero. So what's really cool about this is you get kind of a control plane for your control plane. You get to use Omni to see your cluster, make many clusters. But most importantly is if this is a blank Proxmox server I have right now, no VMs, no nothing. Now, normally when you need to install Talos or K3s or anything, the first place you start is VMs. You make your VMs, you set your storage up, and then once you have your VM set up, then you can either install Talos or K3s. You can go through a bunch of bootstrapping straps. In my last video, we Terraform created these VMs. And I thought that was the best idea. I thought that was pretty nifty, pretty easy to stand up. But there's this tool called the Omni Infra Proxmox Provider that actually does all that for you. So you can use Omni to make the VMs in Proxmox. Now, I will say this is in beta, and I have found a lot of beta things, and I've actually opened up quite a few issues. And I had a lot of issues with this at first, but I finally got it solved, and I kind of want to walk you through just some of the gotchas so that if you want to run this yourself, what it looks like. So the very first thing we're going to have to do is we have to make a service account. I'm sorry, an infra provider. And then you do new infra provider setup. And I'll just say Proxmox. I don't think the name matters, but I'll do that. You'll get this key. And then what you'll do is you'll come over here, and then there's a is it in the Proxmox provider? It is in, where is this one? Yes, it's in here. Okay, so in the Proxmox provider, this is another Docker Compose file. So we have one Docker Compose for Omni. Okay, this sets up Omni. And then for the provider, again, the provider's optional. You don't have to use the provider, but I'm telling you, you're gonna want to use it because it's actually really pretty cool. So this is gonna have an environment file in here that you need to set. So what we need to do, and I can just regenerate this. It's not a big deal if you see this one. You're gonna copy this value here. I'm just gonna cut it. And in the UI, they say service account key, but it's actually infra provider key that we need to provide. So this is important. This is the actual name that the container needs. I don't know why they're called something different. And I'm just gonna click delete this. Yes, I'm gonna do it the long way. And so what I did is this Omni Proxmox provider is one Docker Compose, Omni's the other one. We first start Omni, we say set up a new infra provider to get a key, okay? And then we take that key and we basically just put it in here. That's all we're doing. So what I can do is I can CD into the Proxmox provider, Docker Compose, I can't type, up dash D. It is fall in Michigan and I'm doing leaves and my hands are frozen. I just came from outside. So if I look cold or shaky or my nose is red, it's because I was just outside. Okay, so just to double check, we have two containers up here. Make sure they're running. If they don't run, they'll stop and you'll be like, why doesn't this work? Notice this just went to healthy. So great. I have Omni running and I have Omni with this Proxmox provider. Now here, I could create a cluster. I could come in here. I could go make these machine classes. So what you need to think about with machine classes is they're a template for the VM for your cluster. So you might have control plane workers, you might have regular workers, you might have GPU workers, you might have something special. The machine class is like a template, and basically what you can do is we're gonna define these templates so that when we create a cluster and we want to create 5 workers, the predefined settings are there. And I'm just gonna walk you right through that. So check this out. Oh, one other thing, because this is tricky. When you get Omni set up, you're going to need Omni control installed on your computer. And you can do that via right here, download Omni config. That will give you the configuration file and then Omni control. And so the best way to look at this is Omni control. Just read the docs. It's very, very, very critical that you pay very close attention to this because you can brew install the Sidero tools. You can get it set up, but there's a thing in here about config. On Mac OS, the config lives here, okay? Not here. And if you use an LLM or AI, you can easily get this mixed up. So pay very close attention. But just walk through this guide. It's pretty straightforward. So you're gonna get Omni control, and you can get it from here. You can get it from Brew. I recommend using Brew, but this does provide the stuff you need. Okay, check this out. So cool. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cd that. Now I have a repo. I'll post it in the documentation of this video in the links. But basically what I have is I made a repo and I put some configs in here. So these machine classes, this is our first one we're going to do, which is a control plane. So what it's going to do is it's going to define a machines class for a control plane. The provider ID is Proxmox. That's very important. This is in beta, so there's not a lot of options. So these are kind of the main ones you get. So I can make 4 cores, 16 gigs out of the box, 60 gigabytes of disk storage, and then this storage selector here. This is very important. It's got a kind of a goofy syntax selector. See how it's colon name equals, and then this. This is the name of one of my storage pools in Proxmox. That's all this is. So yours could be local LLVM. You probably wouldn't recommend it. I do recommend dedicated storage. So I have a couple different storage options here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna apply this. But before I do that, I just want to show you. You could technically hit create machine class, and you could call it, control plane. You could call it pizza. You can call it whatever. It's really hard to see, but hit auto provision, and then you're gonna hit Proxmox, and then you could fill this out with a GUI here. But since we're trying to do this with CLI, We're not going to do that. So we're just defining that previous screen here. So what I'll do is I'll come into machine classes. So cd machine classes, and I'll say Omni CTL apply -f. We'll do the control plane. Oh, you'll see this. This is very important. Every time you run Omni control or Cube control, you're always going to have to auth. So you click that, open it, grant the access, grant access. It's just like OAuth flow if you're familiar with that. Okay, I'll just redo this just for fun. Okay, we'll do that one. We have a worker one, and this worker one, I have 32 gigs of RAM, 350 gigs of disk space, and a different storage selector. So we'll come in here and we'll say, I think this one's called worker. Yep, and then I have a GPU worker one as well. All right, so the GPU worker one just has even more RAM, not much different. I want this one specifically so that when I do GPU workloads, you can see it. So what happened now is when I applied those, I immediately got these classes created. So I can go look at Proxmox worker, and this just came from Omni control. So I could have done it by hand here, but it's a lot easier to have it kind of in your Git. It's kind of GitOps, right? But we're saving it here. So all we're doing is we're defining basically like a Terraform template or whatever. We're going to define how we want these things to be created in Proxmox, how much RAM, socket, storage, etc. And I think over time, you'll eventually add more features. So you won't see QEMU guest agent, you won't see secondary disk storage. There's a few things missing. It's okay. You'll see shortly that like this is still pretty beneficial. Okay, so now going over to this cluster template. So what we've done here is we defined a machine, a VM, a template. Now we need to define our actual cluster. So if we come into here to cluster template, essentially what we're doing is these are all part of the documentation. So if you come over here to the for this one, and you look up cluster template, what cluster template? Here we go. It's following these docs. So you can kind of read through all this and figure out how to set up your thing, but I'll just kind of shortcut because I want to make sure that you feel like you can get this set up on your own and you can learn. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm defining a cluster, what the Kubernetes version is, what the version of Talos I want. I'm disabling the default CNI, container network interface, because I'm using Cilium. So notice here, I have no factory dev, no schematics, nothing. I haven't even downloaded an ISO. That's very important. For free, in my old video, I said you had to go to the factory dev, download an ISO, add all the extensions. Don't got to do that anymore. Pretty sick. So what I'm going to say is for the control plane, I'm going to have a machine class defined. So I'm saying, hey, when you make the control plane, use this class we defined, which is over here, Proxmox control plane, which we also define in code. Use that, give me 3, and then install these system extensions. The QEMU guest agent doesn't quite work yet. It's kind of squirrely, so I commented out for now. Again, the provider's in beta, so bear with me. Now, I don't actually need these on my control nodes technically. I just had them there in case one day maybe I did want to allow scheduling on my control plane. They're here, but they're not really necessary. I'm really just leaving them here for example, so that you know how to do this. Next one is my worker class. So this is going to be everything else that's going to handle the workload. Same thing. I'm going to use the machine class Proxmox worker. I want 3 of them. And then I need these system extensions installed for the stuff I do. iSCSI tools for Longhorn, NFSD so I can connect to some NFS shares, and then this one util Linux tools. I can't remember what it's for. Some of my workloads needed it. I just always have it. There's this patches here. So the way Talos works is you have the base OS, then you patch your configs on top because it's a immutable OS. So when you do this patch, it lets you patch your Talos install. Just like my last video, just like if you use Tal Helper, just like anytime you do Talos, it's just that you can do some like initial inline stuff here. You can reference a file too. I'll show you that. But I had to like specifically label my workers here as workers. So this one is just basically saying, hey, when you spin this thing up, give it a label of worker. It's a bug I found. I don't know if you really need to do this, but I was having issues without it being labeled, so I have them here. And then here's a Longhorn storage patch as well, because I'm using Longhorn. And then my GPU workers, this is where it gets really interesting. I only have one, because I'm going to have one VM with the graphics card in there for AI workloads. And I can add my NVIDIA toolkit extensions here. And then I can add the worker patch again, and then my Longhorn. And then notice this file patches GPU worker. This is what I'm saying. You can technically do it this way. So I'm going to patch the kernel, the required NVIDIA modules needed. via file. So I'm kind of showed you the inline and the file just so you can kind of see how this thing works. And that's it. So what's cool is what we're going to do here is we're going to go cd down, and then what we're going to do is I actually have to find my notes to apply this. I believe we need to we need cd into the template, cluster template, and then I have a command in here somewhere. Bear with me to apply this. Hold on, this one. Omni control cluster template sync verbose for a file, this. So now what we're going to do is we say, hey, Omni, I got a cluster template. Go spin this up. So hit enter. If it fails, you'll see like errors, or if you have any config issues, you'll see configs. This worked. I'm probably gonna have to cut the video right here because it's gonna take a second. But essentially what's gonna happen is if we come over here to clusters, see this? Now we're creating a cluster. I could have hit create cluster and like hit machine class for control planes and selected my control plane, main worker pool, same thing. I could have clicked that and done it all through ClickOps, but we don't want to do that. I mean, I don't want to do that. I want to have a CLI. So this is going to take some time, but it's going to get the right ISO with the right extensions. It's going to create the Proxmox VMs, and it's going to do it all for you. And as this goes through, we're going to see VMs get created. So without me doing anything, it's going to go. Now you will have to set up authentication. So basically what happens in the Proxmox provider is you're going to have to, I couldn't get it working with a token, kind of sucks. It's something I'll look at, but basically you're going to create a user, your root user, or make a new user, your password, and then this. And basically what will happen is when you fill out this, this is really all you need to fill out is either this one or a token. I just couldn't get the token one working, and I'll figure it out eventually. But anyways, I just used a username and password just to get the video working. This is how the provider authenticates with Proxmox to do the API action. So basically the provider is kind of like Terraform, but not really Terraform. It's actually nice because Terraform can be a little finicky, and if you're doing a HomeLab, sometimes Terraform feels like a little overkill. It's good to learn. There's nothing wrong with it, but like for this, they already solved the problem of talking to Proxmox, make a VM with all the right settings. I'll bet it is in beta, and there are a couple things. Okay, so see this, check this out. So I have 3 workers, 1 GPU worker, and then my control plane nodes. And then all the settings I set are over here. Now, I am going to tell you one thing that you'll probably want to do is on your control planes for your hard drive or SSD or hard drive, do write through cache because etcd is very read and write intensive on the disk, and I was getting a lot of IO lag. So I'll show you that real quick. You'll need to reboot them. Let the Omni setup do its thing. Here, I'll show you just a second. Let me get these done. Get through. Okay. Let this all get set up. But what you'll notice is like I was having an insane amount of IO delay, and I through enough LLMs and stuff, I figured out, oh, these disks are being thrashed. So if you come over to Omni, you'll see this. Not ready, installing, rebooting, not ready. On my setup, they're never going to be ready. After they're all said and done, they're all going to basically say not ready. The reason is because you need to install a CNI for it to work, and I'm going to use Cilium. So once these get done, finished rebooting and everything, I'll show you that step. But one thing you're going to have to do is you're going to click on your cluster here, and you'll kind of get this like more like detailed root page. If you ever want to scale and get 20 worker nodes, you could. Probably can't do it on a HomeLab, but you could try. You can do that here, or you can define it in your cluster template code or here. So this will automatically spin things up. Notice this W1 is my GPU workers, W0. I can click on this. I could do patches here if I wanted, but we're doing it via cluster template, so we're not going to do that. More importantly, though, is you'll want to download your kube config. This kube config is going to be the data you're going to need to connect to the cluster. So this is guaranteed to be the same as what I had before, but I'll just show you it real quick. What it looks like. Shoot, I should have done that with insiders. VS Code's mad. Okay, it's gonna look something like this. There's nothing sensitive here. This is your kube config. So if you're already familiar with how to use kube config on your local, you're just gonna copy paste this into your kube config. And then when you do kube config get nodes, it's gonna be mad and say, I need to sign in. Go ahead and let it sign in. And then after that, the last step you'll need to do is, it's rather straightforward. This is probably a little too early, but we can try. We'll do kube control get nodes. You must be logged in. It's still booting up. So this is probably because we're still booting. That's fine. I'm gonna pause the video. I'm gonna let these things do their thing, and I'm gonna come back and I'll show you the next steps. All right, we're back. I paused the video. I actually ate dinner and I came back and check this out. So these are all in not ready, and this one's booting. This is good. I actually want to show this. This is a good gotcha. So we created all our VMs automatically with the Proxmox provider. There's one thing we need to do. So if we go to this one, this is under my GPU worker. It is mad because of this. Etsy NVIDIA Persistence D is waiting. Now, one other thing you can do to make sure your stuff's working is you can see the extensions has NVIDIA. There's the two NVIDIA ones here. If I go back here and I pick on like a random worker, there is no NVIDIA. You come back down here, we are waiting. So what's happening is that when you install the NVIDIA kernel modules and the extensions, I don't remember which one, if it's the extensions or the kernel module, one or the other, it won't boot until the GPU is detected. So to fix that, while the Proxmox provider is still in beta and people add more features over time, I just have to add my GPU here. That's it. And then what I can do is I can stop it and then I'll start it. You have to start and stop when you add PCI devices in Proxmox. So that's the only reason I have to start and stop it. So if we wait a minute, it'll go and we'll start. And then eventually what's going to happen is I started that, right? Yep. Let's start. Yes. As this boots up, this will become ready. Now, again, we're still in not ready state. This is the last manual step you need to do. I haven't quite found the way to do this with config patches. I tried a bunch of things and kind of gave up, and I was like, well, someone else can figure it out. But all you're doing is, since I'm using Cilium, if you look at Cilium, their docs, scroll down. I've already been through this a bunch of times, that's why I know exactly where it's at. But down here, we're going to be doing this. We want Cilium with support for Gateway API. We're going to do this. I already have Cilium installed on my computer from the past. So I have the Cilium CLI tool or whatever. I'm just going to copy this. Now, first thing I'm going to do, let's see if that queue control get nodes works. Why is this? I think I need to do like clear off. Oh, what is that command? I cut the video. I found it. Okay, well, you need to run, because I've done this a few times today, things get cached. You need to run, well, you probably won't need to run this, but I had to run this. Queue control OIDC login clean. That will clean the token, and then I'm just gonna do queue control get nodes. It's gonna ask me to sign in. It's okay. And here we are. So that was it. And just a reminder again, we got the kube control config from clusters. Click here and then download config. I'm pretty sure you can use the Omni CLI and just automatically download it too if you want. It's pretty powerful. I'm just doing it this way. It's a little bit easier. I've already done this step. So what we're gonna do is since we have a, whoops, that was the other terminal. Since we have kube control working and it's all not ready, it's not ready because we don't have the CNI. So I'm going to paste this Cilium install, and it's just going to go install Cilium with the recommended defaults, and I'll just hit enter, and then we wait. It'll probably take, depending on your hardware, 5 minutes maybe. If you use the tool FreeLens that I recommended for my last video, I think I recommended Lens last time. I'm actually using FreeLens. It seems just to work better than Lens. This is what I'm using, this one here. It's auto detecting my kube config, and I've already added that. So we'll click on that. And now we'll see pods. And so what we're going to do is we're going to see these Cilium pods getting set up. We just need to let it do its thing. It's going to take a minute. And once these are all said and done, then if we come back to Omni, these will change from not ready to ready. It will, like I said, it'll take some time. I've seen it take 5 minutes, and then that'll be it. And then your Kubernetes cluster is ready. And then everything else from here is up to you. However you bootstrap your cluster with your Argo CD or whatever you do, you have a cluster. Now, the cool thing about this Omni tool, oh, look, they're already almost ready, is we can click on any one nodes. We can click on monitor. We can get some stats out of the box. Now, this is not using, what do you call it, Prometheus or Grafana. This is just kind of the out of the box metrics, which is nice. We can see our console logs here. You'll see some weird errors of the things bootstrapping. Like these are normal. You'll see all these errors here. It's just as the CNI gets stood up, like it'll start to like connect with itself. We can see the kind of the raw config if you need it. You could do patches here through the UI. You can see disk mounts, and then you can see your extensions. The other thing you can do, I don't have it set up in this video, but you can actually like back up your Kubernetes. So remember, Kubernetes, everything about the state of Kubernetes, what's installed, everything goes to etcd, which is key value pair. You can back that up, so you can actually come in here You got to set a few things up. You got to set a S3 bucket up for it to back up to, but you can actually set up automatic backups of your cluster. It won't like back up your like PVCs or volumes or any like state like that, but just like the current state of your cluster in case you needed to like recover from a disaster. I do believe the new version of Omni lets you import clusters too. So if you had to start over and you had a previous cluster backed up and you started fresh on a new computer, you can restore from backup or restore from previous cluster, I think. It's in their docs. I haven't done it, so I'll let you discover that on your own. If I have to do it, I'll make a video on it. But for me, this is what I got. So what's cool is I have a cluster. I could make another cluster, and I can do it all through here. There are limitations to the self-hosted version. You can pay $10 a month and get Omni hosted by Sidero for you, like a SaaS offering. So you don't even have to do any of this setup other than your Proxmox provider. Um, I self-host it. It's pretty easy. You obviously can't self-host for a business. You got to pay for a license, but for HomeLab, it's perfectly fine to do. Self-hosted Omni. I think that if you pay $10 a month, you get like 5 nodes you can manage or something. And then obviously you get into enterprise pricing. It's covered in here somewhere. I forget the exact limitation, but for a home lab, I'm sure you won't hit the limit. If you pay $10 a month, there is a limit. And then obviously, if you're going to use this in your small, medium, large business, then you can go read the docs. The docs are pretty good. They have a lot of information. Now, one thing I will tell you if you are reading these docs is if you go to this Omni, where did I see this? So you install Omni On-Prem. Yep, we did all this. It talks about infrastructure providers. We're installing Proxmox as an infrastructure provider. Sidero's YouTube channel has a lot of great videos if you need like a more advanced setup for your enterprise. I am doing this via a home lab so that you can just get Talos set up with like a hassle-free, no tal helper, which is nice, no Terraform, double nice, pretty simple configs with a little bit of Docker Compose, and then boom, you have it. It reminds me a lot of like an OpenShift, quite a bit. Some of the same concepts are here with machine sets and machine classes. So, learning this tool will set you up for the future. But the one thing in here is this one here. If you see this like expose HTTP service from a cluster, I'm using Cilium and Gateway. So if you followed my video and you couldn't get your like ingresses working, or you're trying to host something external and you just can't get it to work, and you're like, oh, let me check the docs. I don't want to say I don't recommend this, but I don't use this because there's nothing about Omni that requires you to do any of this stuff. Like Omni is going to be your control plane for your control plane. I think you can do some cool stuff with Omni if you didn't even have a CNI and you want to do it. So I'm not saying don't do this, just if you followed some of my other videos, you're like, man, why doesn't any of my stuff work? And you're like, oh, I didn't read this article. I'm not using any of this stuff. I am Omni, get the VM set up, do a couple configs, log in, and boom, you have a cluster. Everything else is up to you, however your cluster works. So just a few extra tidbits there. And like I said, the other thing too is your control planes. So I'll have to stop and start these, make sure you do the write through cache. I'll stop these. Wait until your cluster's ready before you do this write through, because you don't want to like have the cluster spin up and then you reboot the node and like corrupt your etcd. I've done that before. So just let it kind of do its thing. And then like right now, I'm probably in a state where the cluster is healthy being on this video. Yep, everything's healthy. Now I'm going to start and stop those. So hope this helps. I'll paste links to everything that you can reference here and give it a go. It's a pretty cool tool.